Testing 1, 2. Everybody say testing 1, 2. All right, that's enough of me now. I'm Gene Unger with Ferry Bluff Eagle Council. We put on this event every year. I know I see familiar faces. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for staying interested. We did programs with Schlitz Audubon and David Stokes, Laughing with Animals. We had over 1,000 kids and educators up until today. This is plus yet today. So there's a lot of people. And this is the 34th year, so they just keep coming back. So eagles are just that cool, right? Who's an eagle lover? All right, that sounds perfect. I like that. Quality programs, that's why people come back. Our sponsors, you didn't pay anything coming in here. I trust you guys drive safe and everything. Keep it between the fence posts or whatever, but drive safe. The Overlook in Perseus, good place to look for eagles. The VFW boat landing, good place. The Perseus Dam, good place, to look for eagles. I seen a couple this morning when I was snow blowing my driveway. So we have 6, 8, 10 nests in the area. So we haven't seen a large influx of the migratory eagles yet because there hasn't been cold enough. It hasn't frozen everything up yet. The Perseus has a great buffet down here in the river, and the eagles love it, and they know where it is. But they're kind of territorial, and you'll hear a lot of that through Schlitz here when they do their program. But quick safety moment. I know the kids get a little edgy once in a while. We'll keep the program going. The aisles have to stay open or whatever, and they look fantastic right now, so appreciate that. Exits, you can see the signs where you came in, where you went out. If anything, we'll get you out of there very easily. So as soon as Ian gets back here, we'll go ahead. Oh, we got the raffle as well out there. Our Vortex out of Barneveld. Anybody familiar? Got any Vortex equipment? Yeah, good stuff. Lifetime warranty. We've got 2 pairs of binoculars out there and a couple of other items in the raffle. So if you got a chance, this is the only place we're selling the tickets is right here. So you got a pretty good chance of winning. I know a couple people that won. Somebody in here won last year. I mailed something out to them. So good chance. You're ready to go?
Yes, I am.
The Eagles are ready to go. We even have the press here today. Erica's back there. Thank you. And just an FYI, there's a live feed on YouTube. So what you see going on right now, you can actually put on your phone and watch it on your phone or watch it live. So Ferry Bluff Eagle Council introduces Schlitz Audubon Nature Center.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gene. My name is Ian Dorney. I'm a raptor educator with Schlitz Audubon Nature Center. Has anyone been to Schlitz Audubon Nature Center in the audience here? Okay, a handful of us. We are on the north side of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We're right on the lake shore. We have about 185 acres of old farm and recovering forest, even though we're in an urban setting, so it's pretty cool. We have a nature center with snakes and turtles, and we even have a flying squirrel that lives with us. We have a 60-foot tower. We have all sorts of things that are very cool. But my favorite part of Schlitz Audubon Nature Center is our 15 captive birds. Most of them are raptors, although we have just a couple non-raptor birds of prey. But those birds help us do education at events like this, and we will be meeting some through the course of our day. Now, today we'll be talking a lot about a big sciencey word that is adaptations. And adaptations are just something that an animal has or does. It could be physical, about their body, or behavioral, something they do that helps them do their living. Now, for humans, adaptations could be a thumb, or driving safely is a behavioral adaptation. If you're a fish, an adaptation might be your gills, or if you are a howler monkey, it might be howling to defend your territory. There's all sorts of adaptations in the animal kingdom that we could talk about today. But today, at Bald Eagle Watching Days, we'll be talking about birds and their adaptations. Now, audience, I'm going to need some help. You can do this live, or you can do it if you are streaming. I want us to think about what are bird adaptations for survival. If you have a smartphone, you can go to menti.com and enter that code, 87042, and enter 3 words. up to 3 words about bird adaptations for survival. These are things that birds have on their bodies or that they could do with their actions to help them stay alive. I'll also poll some of the audience if you're not one of those technologically inclined individuals. We'll go another little bit. Now on this word cloud application, the words that people keep submitting, the more words that get submitted, the larger the common ones get. So we have 4 pollers right now. We'll go a little bit longer. So things that birds have on their bodies or things that they might do to keep them healthy and keep them alive. Ooh. So right now in the lead we have talons. We also have wings and hollow bones. Some rough-edged primaries. That's a unique one. Beak size, flight vision, beak, night vision, feathers, squawking. Ooh, squawking. All right. Birds have a lot of cool things that make them very different than humans. For instance, the biggest word on this word cloud, the talons, those claws on their feet. Those are unique to the predatory birds that we call raptors. I have in my hand a fake talon of an eagle, or this is the foot with 4 talons. And they use these talons in a very particular way. Do I have a volunteer from the audience, someone who thinks they know what these talons are used for? What are these talons used for? Yeah.
Catching fish.
Oh, absolutely. If you are a volunteer today, if you are brave enough to answer a question or help me out with an interactive, you're going to get a free eagle pin. Thank you for your answer, sir. These talons are used for gripping and catching their prey, whatever they're munching on that day. And these talons are unique to raptors. The raptors, the hawks, eagles, owls, falcons, vultures, also have a few other things that make them unique. They're adaptations that help them live. This is the skull of an eagle. It's a replica, don't worry. But raptor beaks are very unique. Most birds, they have that adaptation, the beak, to help them eat. But the raptor beaks are a special adaptation. And how are they using this beak? By raising your hand, what is the point of having a hooked point? Yeah, what do they use this tip for?
To rip meat.
Oh, absolutely. If you weren't able to hear their answer, they're using this hooked beak, the hawks, eagles, owls, falcons, and vultures, to rip open and apart their meat. And the last thing that all raptors have that makes them unique, an adaptation that they have, are you ready? They have phenomenal eyesight. Now, if I were a raptor, my eyes might be huge compared to my head, but the size of their eyes isn't what matters. It's how they use their forward-facing eyes. Having 2 eyes on the front of their face helps them tell if something is super close or if something is super far away. That binocular vision is what we call it. Being able to tell how far away something is really important if you then have to grab your food with talons and then munch on it with your hooked beak. But they have fantastic eyesight. Now, thank you if you participated in our Menti poll, I appreciate it. All of these are adaptations that, yes, we have some like talons, hollow bones, beaks are physical adaptations. We have some behavioral adaptations, migrating or relocating, squawking, making noise. Migrating, vomiting is a behavioral adaptation. All sorts of things that help these birds survive. And we'll be thinking about those adaptations today. But every adaptation comes with a cost. If I am a human with awesome gripping thumbs, there is going to be something that I'm bad at. And that is true for all of these birds. So when I tell you about an adaptation today, something that this bird has or does, I will also be telling you what this bird might be a little poor at. Before we bring out, we have 5 birds that have visited us today. All of them have these talons, hooked beaks, and forward-facing eyes. Before I bring them out, I want to preface you with a few things. These are live animals. They'll be on our gloves for the entirety of their time here. We'll hold them up on stage for the live streamers, and then perhaps if the audience, if they are comfortable with the audience, then we might be moving our birds around the auditorium. But even though they may look calm, they are still wild animals. They're actually trained to stay on that glove and not freak out. Now, the reason they might freak out is that every single one of you has 2 eyes on the front of your face. And even if you don't feel like eating eagle today, please don't eat an eagle today. Even though you aren't a predator of these animals, we are much bigger than them, we weigh a lot more, and we have eyes like they do. So when they look at us, when they look at a human, they see us as a threat. And they can get very, very scared if they think that we're a threat. So to help these birds feel safe and calm, and if they are safe and calm, then maybe they can move around, I need 2 things from you. If you do need to move, I ask that you move away from those birds instead of suddenly rushing up towards them. It's a scary move if you're small and afraid. So if you need to move away. And if you have something to add, I ask that you hold on to it. You could write it down or just remember it. I would love to talk to you at our booth, but we have a lot of things to get through today. So hold your questions until the end. With that, are we ready to meet our first bird? Okay. I believe that they will be moving out. Camera pictures are welcome. I ask that you try not to use flash. But the first of our birds is very unique, even for a raptor. It has talons, it has a hooked beak, and it has forward-facing eyes. But it has a whole ton of adaptations that also help it hunt. Now, if you're in the audience, you can just shout this out. What kind of raptor is this? Yeah, oh. This is an owl. This is a barred owl, if you were able to get that specific. We know that it's an owl because of its huge eyes, its round face, its general owlness. When we look at an owl, the first thing that stands out is often those eyes. Now, those eyeballs are huge. Those eyes are actually about half of its skull, maybe a little bit more. And if you look through their ear hole, you can actually see the back of their eyeballs. That white spot in the middle of the skin flap there is eyeball. Their eyes are massive. And they need their eyes to be huge because of when they're hunting. When are they hunting? Night. Yeah. The barred owl is a definitely nocturnal owl. The owls are the only nocturnal raptors, although not all owls are nocturnal. But barred owls are hunting at the dead of night. If you're ever in typically the north woods, I'll hear them more, but they have a wonderful call that sounds like, "Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all?" Which is a behavioral adaptation. They're calling out for other birds to see if they're being safe. Those eyes are great at seeing in low light conditions. They can fly around the woods without hitting stuff, but having phenomenal nighttime vision comes at a cost. This barred owl, his name is Perseus. Perseus, like all other barred owls, is pretty much colorblind. He has tons of rods in his eyes, more than we do. His eyes are really good at low light conditions, but he can't see very much color. Another adaptation that he has to help him hunt in nighttime are his ears. Now, as he walks around, he doesn't have ears like we do. We have these awesome little cups on the side of our heads, these wiggly parts that catch sound. And actually, the bigger that these cups would be, if you take your hands and you make those cups bigger, you might start hearing a little bit better. I would actually like us to do an experiment to see how good owls can hear. I'm going to turn off my microphone, and I'm going to just keep talking at the same volume. I'm going to keep talking at the same volume, and if you can hear me a little bit better, then your owl ears are working. If you take your hands away and I keep talking at the same volume, you might hear a little bit worse, and if you put them back, you'll hear me better again. You're collecting sound. Perseus and all owls have these huge cups around their ears, but they're not wiggly bits like ours. Barred owls and all owls have a thing called a facial disc. Now, facial discs are just giant dinner plate radar dishes that catch sound and put them down into his ear holes. They are right behind his eyes, his ears are, and they allow him to hunt when he can't see his food or when his food is underneath piles of leaves and piles of snow. He can hunt with just sound if he wants to. His eyesight and his ears are really, really well adapted to be hunting when he needs to hunt. But even his hearing comes at a cost. His skull is about as big as a child's fist, smaller than my fist. There's not a whole lot of room inside of his skull. Most of it is eyeball. Some of it is ears. A good portion of it is brain and beak. But barred owls, functionally, can't smell. They don't have a very good sense of smell. So having great eyesight, having great hearing, comes at a cost of not being able to smell very well. Now, this barred owl has never done an Eagle Days program before. We've been coming for a number of years, and you may recognize some of our later birds. But Perseus is a 2-year-old barred owl. He came to us about a year and a half ago, and he has a very, very important story. Now, Perseus was in his nest. He was being raised by his barred owl mother, and unfortunately, he fell out of his nest. Most of the time, that's okay. The mother barred owl will come and pick up her chick and take it back, or care for it on the ground. But Perseus's nest was in a park. And because he fell out of his nest into a park and there were people around, his mother felt unsafe going down to rescue him. Because she felt unsafe coming down, Perseus was very, very hungry and very, very thirsty. He was malnourished and dehydrated when wildlife rehabbers found him. But more debilitating than thirst and hunger, when Perseus was on the ground, people saw a little owlet, and he was just a fuzzy little munchkin. Oh, what a great owl. But they saw this cute little owlet on the ground, and they went up to take selfies with it, and they went up to go pet it and call it a friend. And Perseus started to associate himself with humans. He's what we call an imprint. And when he came into us like this, he wasn't sure how to act like an owl. An imprinted bird learned how to be a bird from a human, and I don't have feathers, I don't eat mice, I'm not very good at being an owl. And he needs to learn how to be an owl very, very young, otherwise he will never learn. So Perseus, being a 2-year-old owl, he might live well into his 20s with us. We're very excited to have a new bird, and I thank you for being calm to tell him that not all the time humans are big and scary. But Perseus is going to be with us for a very long time because of that behavioral sickness, as it were. He doesn't know how to be how he is. Now, as Perseus goes back, I want to remind you that owls, they've awesome adaptations for eyesight and hearing, but not very good for smell. In fact, much worse than human smelling. Human noses are pretty good. I don't go hunting for my food with my nose. I look with my eyes into the refrigerator and grab something. But our noses are pretty good. To demonstrate how good a human nose is, I will need one brave volunteer who thinks that they got a great nose, either in quality or in beauty. We'll do you right there. Yeah, come on up. I'll have you stand on this side of the green tarp. Or we could send up multiple volunteers if that would help confidence. Okay. All right, come on up. Now, what I have here, I have a jar with an unknown scent in it. And this is a scent that most humans would be able to recognize. And what's your name? Ryder. Ryder, I'm going to have you stand right here. Thank you for being a volunteer for me. Now, Ryder, what's going to happen? I'm going to squeeze this bottle of smell, and it's a good smell, I think. And I want you to tell me if you can smell it. Okay, do you think you know what it is? I'm going to step closer. Do you know what it is? Okay. Any guesses? All right. How about here?
Soap.
Soap. Very close. Nice, Ryder. Ryder, thank you for being a volunteer for me. I mean, yeah. This is mint. There's definitely mint soaps out there. Now, Ryder was able to smell this smell and make, an educated guess about this from a couple feet away. The next bird that will be coming out would be able to smell this smell and make a guess about it on the other side of the auditorium. Actually, about a mile away. The bird that is coming out uses its sense of smell in its hunting strategy because its sense of smell is a phenomenal adaptation. If we compare this bird's skull to the skull of an owl skull's huge eyes, pretty small nose hole. This bird has a huge nose hole. This raptor, this bird of prey, does anyone think they know what this bird is? Yeah, I saw your hand really quick. Indeed it is, down to the species. This is a turkey vulture. Well done, sir. Ryder, yeah, great, he got one. This turkey vulture uses its sense of smell to find its favorite foods. What is a turkey vulture eating? Does anyone, yeah, what is a turkey vulture eating? I have talked to you. What? Yeah. Indeed, this turkey vulture would be eating dead meat. Now, dead meat smells pretty darn bad. If you've ever walked up to a deer on the side of the road that unfortunately has been there for a little too long, this bird's food, carrion, decaying, rotten food, smells a lot. So she uses her phenomenal sense of smell, those huge nostrils. If you get a good look at her face, you can actually see through her nostrils. She doesn't have a septum like we do. She uses her sense of smell to find food from miles away. But if I go up to a deer on the side of the road and start munching on it, I'm going to get very, very sick. When things die and start decaying, they get filled with bacteria like botulism and cholera, and they might have some, different like viruses and things in them. Turkey vultures have a stomach adaptation. Their stomach is potentially hundreds of times better than ours. And when she eats something that makes a human sick, she actually kills the bacteria, she denatures the viruses, and what comes out the other end is sanitary. So when vultures are going around and eating different things, they're actually cleaning up the environment for us. They're taking all of the potential illnesses and just bad smelling stuff and getting rid of it. They're super cool. That said, her phenomenal stomach adaptation, having a powerful gut, does come at a cost. Her stomach cannot solve one problem in Wisconsin, and that is winter. If you've ever opened a frozen pizza, I do this a lot. If you open a frozen pizza and you try to smell it, it doesn't smell like a whole lot. Smells travel very slowly in cold air. It's just not the best sense to be using when it's cold out. In the summer, things decay a lot quicker, and the turkey vultures will stick around. But once it starts to get cold, it's hard for them to find food with their nose. The way that they get around this is by going through what we call a partial migration. Oh. Tallulah, our turkey vulture, is saying, "This volunteer's face doesn't matter. My wings need the light." So turkey vultures go through a migration. This is a behavioral thing, an adaptation that they have chosen to do. They'll form kettles of potentially hundreds of birds, and they will ride the final warm winds as far south as they need to smell more smelly smells. That means this time of year, you would very rarely find a turkey vulture because their adaptations aren't meant to be surviving winter. They want to be down south where it's easy to find smelly roadkill. Clearly, this vulture did not get the memo that it's time to fly south. This is Tallulah, our female turkey vulture. And Tallulah, like Perseus, our barred owl, she is an imprint. She was transferred to us from another facility, so we're not entirely certain of her story very early on, but because of how she behaves around humans, we know that she doesn't have a clear line between vulture and humans. We know that she'll often put her head down and preen. In a room of hundreds of other predators, a wild turkey vulture would probably be trying to fly away or would be extremely nervous. And she's like, "No, you're fine. I'm going to just clean myself. It's cool." So Tallulah, to us, is a very charismatic bird because she shows a lot of cool behaviors. Being an imprint, she's just not as threatened by us as she should be. And imprinted birds in the wild will often put themselves in harm's way because they're not avoiding humans. We have windows, we have power lines, we have soccer nets, we have all sorts of things that could harm these birds by accident. So Tallulah lives with us for her own good. Tallulah is turning 16 this year, which for a turkey vulture, she's about 60 years old. They live maybe 20 years in the wild. In captivity, they can live a lot longer. She gets free food, a free home, and a heated home in the winter. So she might live well into her 40s. The oldest turkey vulture that I know lives at the University of Minnesota Raptor Center, and Nero is 48 years old this year. So because she has nothing physically wrong with her, she has that mental injury, being an imprint, she could have a very, very long life with us. As she tucks those wings in, I'm going to send her back to her crate. Those beautiful wings are also an adaptation for these birds to catch wind and tilt around and soar to find food. For her, those wings are just long enough to get her off the ground. She weighs about 4 pounds, or 16 McDonald's hamburgers. If she was the size of me, she would need much, much bigger wings. The largest bird in the fossil record that we found is an ancient albatross that weighed 150 pounds and had a 23-foot wingspan. To model that, I will need an adult volunteer to come up here and stand nice and pretty with their wings spread. Yes, you. Thank you. To show you what that looks like, the average, adult is between 100 and some stuff. And you, sir, I want you to stand in the middle of the tarp. And I'll need, would you mind helping me just to hold the other end of the rope? Thank you. Walk that way. And spread your wings. This would be the wingspan of a bird that weighs as much as, an adult. A massive, massive wingspan to get us off the ground. Thank you, both of you. Now, wings are super cool. And for vultures, their wings are long enough that they don't need to flap very often. Our next bird doesn't have nearly as impressive wings. The turkey vulture we just saw is on the bottom. Their wingspan is nice and wide. They have deep wings that help them soar. Our next bird has to flap quite a bit more. That's something that they're not adapted to do. They're not great soarers. This bird, instead of having super long wings, has something else that it's very good at. This is the most common raptor, or one of them. This is the red-tailed hawk. And red-tailed hawks, even though they don't have an impressive wingspan necessarily, they do have very impressive feet. If we compare their feet to the feet of a turkey vulture feet are very weak. They have long, flat feet to help them walking on the ground as they're approaching that dead deer on the side of the road. Red-tailed hawks, their feet are very powerful, and they're very good at gripping, so that they can take down live things. So they have a physical adaptation on their body to hunt in a different way that the turkey vulture cannot. Now, red-tailed hawks are so common because they can eat a lot of things. The general rule that we use for raptors is they can eat something if it can fit in their talons and they are able to lift it off the ground. That'll be like their bread and butter. For this bird, Skywalker, our red-tailed hawk, she weighs about 2.5, 3 pounds. So she can lift and carry to safety food that is maybe a pound and a half. To explore just what red-tailed hawks can eat, I have brought a raptor lunchbox. Don't worry, it's not actual lunch items. I do need one volunteer who hasn't volunteered yet to come up and help me, and we'll do some voting as an audience for if our raptor would eat this thing. You back there in the white hat, yeah! Oh, it's a headband. Oh, very cool. All right, and what's your name? Colsta? Callista. So Callista, I want you to grab one of these items and hold it nice and tall. And audience, give me a thumbs up if a red-tailed hawk would eat this or not. Callista, what is that? Just generally, what is it?
No.
Oh. This is a sparrow. So would a red-tailed hawk eat a sparrow or would it not eat a sparrow? Thinking about the weight and size of a sparrow, it might be hard to catch, but it would totally be on the menu. Callista, you can grab another one. A slippery, slimy, what is it? Yeah, would it eat a frog? Thinking about the size and the weight? It could. Red-tailed hawks don't love to hang out around marshes, but if they find a frog and there's nothing else, yeah, why not? All right, Callista, you can grab another one. Oh, what is it? Yeah, would a red-tailed hawk eat a sandwich? Thinking about the size and the weight of it. Hamburgers, unfortunately, don't move a whole lot. Red-tailed hawks, unlike turkey vultures, are eating only live prey that I have readily seen. They might scavenge, I'm sure, but they also eat raw food. It can't be cooked. It's got to be raw. All right, Callista, let's do 2 more. Oh, yes, my favorite. Oh, would a red-tailed hawk eat a snake? Think about the size and weight of it. Ding, ding, ding. It's red-tailed hawk spaghetti night. Ha ha. And we'll do one more, Callista. Oh. What about a small mouse? Would a red-tailed hawk eat a mouse? Totally. Furry things are generally their best diets because they're easy to find. Callista, thank you so much for being a vulnerable volunteer. You have a great rest of your day. Because red-tailed hawks can eat so many wild, raw diet items, they are found all over. As we were driving here, we saw at least 7 red-tailed hawks. They like open spaces where they can find a nice high perch and look out for things they could get in their talons. Some of the best places to look for these birds, coincidentally, are on the sides of roads. because it's a clearing. There's no trees for them to get their wings caught in. Nice open areas. Being able to live in a lot of areas and being able to eat a lot of things makes these birds a generalist predator. A generalist is any animal that is able to thrive in a wide variety of conditions and can use a lot of different resources. If she can't find a rodent, she could try to hunt a bird or a snake. If she can't find a snake, maybe we resort to frogs today. And being a generalist, these birds are super, super easy to find. Some of the key highlights of these birds, the adults, if you're looking to find them in the wild, the adults have these red tails. The juveniles, the teenagers, don't have a red tail. Their tail looks like this. It's pretty nondescript. It's brown. But their backs have little backpack straps of white, and their bellies are cream with a band across them. Those are some of the best characters that you can use to identify those birds in the wild. Now, Skywalker lives with us. She also has sort of a behavioral illness or injury with us. She was at a rehab early on in her life, and they deemed her not fit for release because she had associated with humans. So she lives with us. She is on exhibit at Schlitz Audubon Nature Center. Most of our birds have vacation homes where they never see the public. But if you do visit us, she is out on exhibit for the public to see pretty much any time, any day if the weather is favorable. Related to that, if you visit us at our booth after the show, we have free passes. If you find yourself in the Milwaukee area, we'd love for you to visit us for free. It'll get a whole carload of people in. We also have some fantastic merchandise. We have buttons and pins. We have eagle shirts for bald eagle watching days. And if you have any questions or stories, we'd love to talk to you at that booth after the show. Now, Skywalker, our red-tailed hawk, is a generalist. The barred owl and the turkey vulture can also use a lot of different spaces. They're pretty common birds in Wisconsin. And the generalists are the best if you're trying to go find those birds. You can listen for the barred owls at night. In the summer, you can look for turkey vultures, and red tails are here year-round. But not all raptors are generalists. Some of them are even more specialized. And, ooh, we got one squawking back there. We've met 3 of our birds. We have 2 more for us today, and those 2 birds are what we call specialists. We have generalists who eat generally anything, and then there are specialists who only eat special foods and only live in special places. Those birds have even more refined adaptations. The bird that is going to come out has longer wings than the red-tailed hawk, and these wings serve a very, very important purpose. This is the wing of, eventually, hopefully, the bird who comes out. I heard him squawking back there. We'll see. Oh, there he is. So this bird here has extremely long, extremely pointed wings that have a very important job. The longer the wing, the stiffer the wing, and the pointier the wing is, the faster the bird will go when it flaps. This bird, ooh, that's why we use a tarp. As an aside, that's a behavioral adaptation. When a bird is nervous, it goes to the bathroom, so it doesn't have to carry all of its bathroom weight with it. And that's a comfortable thing. Oh. So we've gone from, do I need to fly away, to, no, we're good. So this bird here is a type of falcon. It has very long, pointed wings, and this is the fastest falcon. It's actually the fastest animal alive. By raising your hand, does anyone think they know what species this is in the red yet? Yes. This is, if you couldn't hear their answer, this is a Peregrine Falcon. Peregrine Falcons have been clocked at over 200 miles an hour. The fastest that I have heard, although there's a lot of hearsay, the fastest that I have heard is 240 miles an hour. They get to those ridiculous speeds not only by flapping their wings, but also through a behavioral adaptation. They bring in their wings and they make themselves super smooth, very aerodynamic, and they dive and circle their prey and then strike it. If you get hit by something, really doesn't matter the size. If you get hit by something at 200 miles an hour, you're pretty much done for. But if this bird, if a peregrine falcon was hunting prey on the ground at 250 miles an hour, the peregrine falcon would also meet an untimely end. So in order to be flying this fast, this bird cannot be hunting things on the ground. Its adaptations, its super long, stiff wings, its behavioral diving, all of that means that they have to hunt things in the air. Peregrine falcons are often called duck hawks because they're eating mostly birds. That's really most of what they eat. And because they're such fantastic hunters for a very particular type of thing, falcons have been used for over 4,000 years in a sport called falconry. Now, falconry is similar to perhaps duck hunting if you use a partner dog. Falconry is a hunting sport where instead of a dog partner, you have a bird partner. And this peregrine falcon who's moving around, his name is Cutright. Cutright was a falconry peregrine. He started out with a wild parent and wild nest, and then was brought into captivity by a falconer and used for a number of years as a falconry bird. They have cool equipment, they get these awesome helmets, and then when the helmet comes off, it's time to hunt, and then they go off and they strike something, and then they come home and they both eat it together. It's a great time. But these birds' adaptations, humans saw it and were like, yes, that's super cool, we want to copy it, or we want to use it. Now, peregrines have even more adaptations to help them hunt. Not only do they have their long, stiff wings, they also, as he walks around, perhaps you've seen something in his nose, and he's not rude, it isn't a booger. It's actually a bone. He has this thing in his nose, which has a very special name, and that name is a tubercle. Now, the tubercle is a little bone in his nose that helps him breathe. There's a red arrow pointing at it. That tubercle breaks up air so that he is able to breathe. If you've ever been biking or running or sledding or something and the wind is in your face, it can be really hard to breathe. And going 200 miles an hour, it's really hard to breathe. So that bone in the middle of his nose, that tubercle slows the air down so that he can still breathe as he's hunting. We have used that tubercle design in our jet engines. If the jet engine didn't have that cone in the middle to break up the air, the engine would not be able to breathe because the velocity of the plane would then just blow out the engine, is my understanding. So these birds are really, really well adapted to do what they need to do. But we mentioned how he can't hunt on the ground because he would run into it and it would be a bad time. He can only hunt a few things, which is again why we call him a specialist. And because he only eats special types of things, if something happens to the birds that he's eating, the peregrine falcons will suffer quite a bit. They will starve if suddenly they can't hunt in the same way. And that happened. Now, in the 1950s, America was using this thing called DDT. DDT came in jars and cans, and it was sprayed on fields. DDT was used to kill mosquitoes and bugs. And it did a really good job of it. Oh my goodness, it was so good at killing bugs. But unfortunately, when it killed a bug, that bug was now coated in this chemical and laying on the ground. And then there were birds who were like, oh yes, please, free mosquito, I'll take that. And I'll take this one, and I'll take that. And birds were eating a lot of mosquitoes and beetles and things that were covered in this chemical. And we didn't mean for that. It was an accident. We just didn't think about it ahead of time. But then when those birds were eating tons of insects with DDT, then the peregrines were eating tons of those birds that have tons of DDT in them. And it did something very, very dangerous for these birds. The individual bird wasn't affected, but their eggs were. Cutright weighs, he weighs like 1.5 pounds, maybe 2 pounds if he's heavy. A 2-pound bird sitting on a chicken egg is roughly the peregrine egg size. Normally it's totally fine. But because of DDT, peregrine eggs were cracking underneath the weight of a 1.5 pound bird. And when all their eggs were cracking, they weren't able to have any young. And suddenly, by the 1960s, going from hundreds of these birds, we had none of them. Peregrine falcons were extirpated. They just weren't around anymore. And that was sad, because these are phenomenal predators, the fastest animal alive. It lives in Wisconsin. But it was getting hurt, and they weren't here. Now, even though these birds were being accidentally hurt by humans, people cared about these birds, and when people care, there is always hope. So peregrine falcons are back in Wisconsin. We stopped using DDT, which was a great call, and we protected these birds. We gathered them from other parts of the nation and reintroduced them, and we know, like there's a yearly survey, we know birds by name. We know when they come in from different states because they have little bands on them. It's a great time. We're glad that we have peregrine falcons again, but it's only because of human actions that they left and have come back. So when I see a peregrine falcon, not only do I think about its adaptations and how cool it is that it's designed to be the fastest animal alive, but I also think about the hope that is in their story, that humans were doing something wrong, and then we stopped it, and we reversed the effect. So as Cutright goes back into his crate, we have one more bird for you, and that bird is a specialist. Just like the peregrine falcon, the bird that's going to come out, only eats a few things, at least during part of the year. And it's really, really well adapted for a particular place to live. And it is arguably one of America's most important birds. Now, DDT affected peregrines. It was also affecting eagles. And we'll talk about eagles for a little bit now, because that's why we're here this weekend at Bald Eagle Watching Days. This individual out here on Maddie's arm, and this is a much, much larger bird and a very different bird than our peregrine. When an eagle enters a new space, they have a behavioral adaptation. They do this thing to help them survive. They announce their presence. They chatter around. That sound carries really well over water. And if she calls out and no eagle responds, that's telling her, hey, this is my space. Nice. Now this bird is turning 9. She's still kind of a youngin' for a bald eagle. You may have met her before. She's been to Bald Eagle Watching Days before. This is Valkyrie. And Valkyrie, being a 9-year-old, is an adult now. But when she started coming here, she was not an adult. She looked like the picture back here. When an eagle is young, when they're in their teenage years, life is hard, and they have a number of adaptations to help them survive those hard teenage years. Most of them are in their plumage or their feathers. When a bald eagle is young, they have a brown head, a brown beak, and brown tail. It helps them camouflage. It helps them hide out in the trees so that other predators can't find them. It might help them fly. We've noticed that a lot of juvenile eagles seem a little bit bigger. They have longer flight feathers, kind of like training wheels on a bicycle. And most importantly, their coloring when they're young, Oh. When a bald eagle is young and they're all brown, their coloring tells an adult eagle, hey, I'm a teenager, cut me some slack, life is hard, let me through. Because adult eagles are very territorial. They defend their space. They call out and make sure that no one else is in their space or no other eagle is there. But if they see a juvenile, they'll be like, hey, I remember when I was young, it was hard. You can hunt in this space, you can fly through this space, but just know that it's mine. They give up all of those wonderful adaptations when they're juveniles. Their coloring changes when they're 3, 4, 5 years old. They get some speckling on them and then fully commit to the white tail and white head when they're 5, 6. They give up all of those teenage advantages so that they can have their own territory and they can have their own nest and have their own young. In the summertime, when the living is easy, perhaps these birds will scavenge. Like a turkey vulture, they might eat some roadkill or things they can find in the field. They might bully turkey vultures away from a kill and steal it. But in the winter, their diet becomes much more specialized. Like the peregrine falcon can only eat birds, the eagles in the winter, again, it's pretty hard to find roadkill if it's covered in snow and icy. And in the wintertime, adult eagles have a behavioral adaptation. They dissolve all of their territories. They say, hey, we don't care about borders anymore. We're just all going to meet at open water. And as long as there's enough fish, I don't care if there are other eagles here. And they specialize into their fish diet because it's the easiest thing to find. Wisconsin has a lot of rivers and a lot of large bodies of water, and that allows them to hunt in an area that doesn't have frozen lakes. That's why we hold eagle counts around Christmas and we host bald eagle watching days in the winter, is because their territories don't exist right now. As long as there's food, you can find, hundreds of eagles along the same river. Now, because eagles are specialists and hunting fish in the winter, I don't know if you've ever tried to grip a fish. Maybe you're fishing and you're trying to get it off the line and you keep kind of trying to grip it. They also have some physical adaptations. We've talked about their behavioral adaptations with dissolving their territories. But if you come to us at our booth, perhaps you'll get a chance to see this replica eagle foot. They have these things on their feet called spicules. And spicules are little grippy scales that help them hold on to that fish. They also have exceptionally long, curved talons to pierce down through those scales. So they're definitely adapted to be hunting fish, even if they don't do it all year round. But because they are specialists, just like the peregrine falcon, because these birds only eat a couple things, if something happens to that thing, they're in danger. When we were spraying DDT on our fields and killing mosquitoes and grubs and bugs and things that were eating our crops, it affected the peregrines through the insectivorous, the insect-eating birds. It also affected eagles. DDT was washing off into our rivers. The fish in the rivers were like, yes please, free dead bugs. And then eagles were also eating doses of DDT in these fish. In Wisconsin, we used to have hundreds, potentially thousands of nests, and the U.S. had tens of thousands of nests. In 1963, we were down to 400 nests as a nation. Wisconsin eagles were threatened. They weren't formally endangered, but they were threatened because their eggs were cracking. And humans did a number of things to help them. We passed the Bald Eagle Act, which made it illegal to have artifacts or approach these birds. We protected their nests with that law. In 1972, DDT was banned. And then in 1973, we passed the Endangered Species Act, which gave law enforcement and wildlife specialists a lot of power. In 1973, we had 108 nests. This is a big, boring graph, but I'll talk you through it. In 1973, we had 108 nests. Last year, we had 1,684 nests in Wisconsin. So because humans recognized that we were doing something harmful to these birds, and we cared enough about these birds to give them help, again, behavioral adaptation, making sure that she's nice and light in case she needs to fly. Pretty cool. Because we recognized that we were hurting these birds by accident, and we helped them, eagles are no longer endangered. I believe they were delisted in the early 2000s. And I know that Minnesota has just, they're not done counting, but they're like, okay, we got enough eagles. Alaska has the most, Florida has the next most, and then Minnesota and Wisconsin, we each have about 6,000, 7,000 eagles today. And it's very, very exciting that these birds were almost gone from America, and now they're back. It's a really, really cool story. These birds are an indicator. So not only are they raptors with their 3 adaptations, their talons, their beak, and their eyes, not only are they specialists, they're raptors that only eat a few things, but they're also indicators. They tell us, and y'all, and other scientists, how the Earth is doing. And when these birds started leaving or dying, that indicated to us, something's wrong. So we like to pay attention to the animals around us because if they're at risk, we might also be at risk. They eat fish. I also happen to eat fish. I want to know if something's happening to the fish, and these birds can tell us that. Today, these birds are telling us that, hey, we're back, we're good, but we're not entirely there yet. Many eagles come into wildlife rehab centers. It's about 90% of the eagles that come into a wildlife rehab center have some level of lead in their system. If you're not familiar with lead, it's a metal that is really cheap and very soft and easy to use, but it is also toxic. It is a poison to life, to humans as well as to these birds. It is not in their food chain unless it is put into their food chain. And we've noticed patterns that correspond with the use of lead bullets and lead fishing tackle. If you do some research online, you can find pictures, x-rays of these birds in their stomachs. There are fragments of lead bullets or lead shot or like a whole lead sinker. So even though we have tons of eagles in Wisconsin today, more than we did in the 1970s, they are still connected to us through the land, and our actions still affect them. And maybe it's the barred owl with their phenomenal hearing, but their no sense of smell. Maybe it's the turkey vulture with their awesome sense of smell, but they gotta move. Maybe it's the red-tailed hawk who can eat most things, but isn't an awesome flyer. Maybe it's the peregrine who's a great flyer, but can only eat a few things. Or a bald eagle. These birds are around us. They're super cool, and their adaptations help them write their story, but humans are a part of today's chapter. So as we attend bald eagle watching days, as you experience these birds today and moving into the future, I encourage you to think about the actions and choices you make and how that affects the animals around you, because we are all one community. If you have questions for us, if you volunteered for me and didn't get a pin, I will be here, but we'd love for you to stop by our booth to check out our eagle shirts and our pins and magnets, to check out more information about lead poisoning and actions that you can take, or to just say hello and thank us for our time. I hope that you enjoyed meeting our 5 birds. I would love for you to visit us at Schlitz Audubon Nature Center and at our booth, and I hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, don't they do a wonderful job? Schlitz Audubon, Maddie, Ian, oh my God, what a wonderful, the program is absolutely wonderful. And I know we don't have a big crowd in here today, but we have the best crowd, absolutely. Coming up right after this here, I'm just gonna lay out your itinerary for the next hour and a half, maybe if I can.
David, you're using the stage.
Take
correct?
a break, stretch, walk around, check
get out
out
of
some
here
of the
as soon as
DNR stuff out here. They got some cool things, and we got a raffle out there. Of course, you can win a couple $100 pairs.
using the
We got some
orchestra
binoculars and the nice Vortex stuff. So thank you, Vortex. Also, there's still some food to eat down in the cafeteria yet. Take a snack, hot chocolate, coffee, all that stuff's down there. And you can go out face painting, all that kind of stuff. All the kids got some activities and things to do. If you're like this big and you don't have an eagle on your cheek, you're missing it today. At 11:30, so not even a half an hour yet. David Stokes. David, are you in here yet? He's probably back setting up the animal.
Here.
Oh, there you are, David. Oh, my God.
This is not me.
Now, that's a bald eagle if I've ever seen one. David has got, if you can name it, he has it. He either has it live, he's got snakes, he's got pythons. What do you got, a corn snake? He's got frogs. And this tarp down here, who's ever heard of turtle on a tarp? It's here. He has turtles. He's got snapping turtles and box turtles. He's got, and actually, I mean, like these kids right here, this is something they will seldom see other than Sauk-Prairie area here. David, he's on at 11:30. You know, you can get up, stretch around a little bit, but again, the shows are all free. Just come on back. David is going to have a program that even the adults will be laughing, absolutely laughing about. So, Schlitz, Nature Center, thank you. Wonderful job. They'll be back on at 2:30 again today. So just now you can go brag to everybody. You just seen a bald eagle within feet away. So, okay, there's some food and refreshment. There's face painting and stuff, few activities. In 20 minutes, we'll be back here for another show. I hope you will be too. Thank you.